Picture this. A 23-year-old cook stands in front of a Michelin-starred chef whose restaurants have fed presidents and celebrities. Her hands are shaking. She's presenting a dish that took her 6 months to perfect. The chef doesn't even look at the plate. Instead, he glances at her stained apron, her nervous posture, and says 5 words that echo through the silent kitchen. This is going to be awful. What happens next didn't just change her life. It exposed something broken in the culinary world that nobody talks about. And by the end of this story, you'll understand why sometimes the greatest innovations come from the people everyone underestimates. Her name is Maria Santos, and 6 months before that humiliating moment, she was working the night shift at a 24-hour diner in Newark, New Jersey. While celebrity chefs were posting Instagram stories from private jets, Maria was scraping by on minimum wage plus tips, sending most of her paycheck back to her family in the Philippines. But Maria had a secret. Every night after her shift ended at 2 a.m., she'd stay in that empty diner kitchen for 3 more hours. She wasn't cleaning. She was experimenting, creating, obsessing over a single dish that lived rent-free in her mind. The dish? A reinterpretation of her grandmother's adobo, a traditional Filipino braised chicken, but elevated with techniques she'd taught herself from YouTube videos and borrowed cookbooks. She'd watched Marco Pierre White's masterclasses on her cracked phone screen. She'd studied Massimo Bottura's approach to deconstructing traditional Italian dishes. And she was applying those lessons to her own heritage. Here's what most people don't know about the restaurant industry. According to a 2023 study by the James Beard Foundation, only 7% of head chefs in fine dining establishments in America are women, and less than 3% come from Asian backgrounds. The culinary world has a gatekeeping problem, and Maria was about to crash through that gate whether it was ready or not. She'd entered a regional cooking competition called Rising Star Chef, a showcase designed to discover unknown talent. The prize? A mentorship opportunity with Chef Jean-Pierre Beaumont, a French culinary legend with 3 Michelin stars and a reputation for being, let's just say, extremely difficult to impress. The day of the competition, Maria arrived 4 hours early. She'd taken 2 buses and walked a mile carrying her ingredients in a beat-up cooler. While other competitors showed up with sous chefs and assistants, Maria unpacked alone. She had her grandmother's recipe, written on a piece of paper stained with oil and memories. And she had something else, everything to prove. When Chef Beaumont walked into the competition venue, the energy shifted instantly. This wasn't just any judge. This was a man who'd made Gordon Ramsay look soft. His restaurants had rejected dishes from professionally trained chefs who'd spent $100,000 on culinary school. His standards weren't just high. They were astronomical. And he had a particular disdain for what he called home cooking trying to play dress up. As each contestant presented their dish, Chef Beaumont delivered his verdicts with surgical precision. Too salty, underseasoned, overcooked, pretentious, derivative. One by one, hopeful chefs walked away crushed. The room felt like a courtroom where everyone was guilty until proven innocent. Then came Maria's turn. She approached the judging table carrying her dish with both hands. On the plate, her grandmother's adobo, but transformed. The chicken was perfectly braised, glazed with a reduction that caught the light. She'd added crispy chicken skin as a textural element, positioned like a crown. Pickled vegetables cut through the richness. A delicate foam, made from coconut milk and pandan, sat beside it like a cloud. But before she could even describe her creation, Chef Beaumont interrupted. "What is this?" His voice dripped with condescension. "It looks like peasant food with delusions of grandeur." The room went silent. Producers shifted uncomfortably. Other contestants stared at their shoes. Maria's voice came out smaller than she wanted. "It's my grandmother's adobo, chef. But I've reimagined. He cut her off again, letting out a theatrical sigh. "Young lady, this is a professional competition. We're looking for innovation, not your family's leftovers dressed up with foam." He hadn't touched his fork. He was judging her food without tasting it. Judging her. Here's what you need to understand. This moment happens thousands of times in professional kitchens worldwide. A 2022 report from the Restaurant Opportunity Centers United found that 80% of women in culinary positions reported experiencing discrimination or dismissal from male superiors. Maria wasn't just facing one arrogant chef. She was facing an entire system designed to keep people like her out. But then something unexpected happened. Maria didn't leave. She didn't cry. She looked Chef Beaumont directly in the eyes and said, "With respect, Chef, how can you judge a dish you haven't tasted?" The room somehow got quieter. Nobody spoke to Jean-Pierre Beaumont like that. Ever. His face reddened. But he was trapped by his own reputation. In front of cameras, producers, and dozens of witnesses, he had to taste it. He picked up his fork like it weighed 100 pounds. What happened next became culinary legend. Chef Beaumont took one bite. His expression didn't change immediately. Trained professionals have poker faces. But something shifted in his eyes. He took another bite. Then another. For 20 seconds, the only sound in that massive venue was a Michelin-starred chef chewing thoughtfully while everyone held their breath. He set down his fork. When he spoke, his voice was different, stripped of arrogance, filled with something that sounded almost like surprise. "This is," he paused, choosing his words carefully. "This is exceptional." The room exhaled collectively, but he wasn't finished. The balance of vinegar and soy, the way the braising liquid has reduced to this glossy, concentrated essence, that takes skill. The crispy skin adds textural contrast I didn't expect. And this foam, he tasted it separately. Coconut and pandan. It's cutting through the richness without overwhelming the fundamental character of the dish. He looked at Maria, really looked at her, for the first time. "You said this is your grandmother's recipe." Maria nodded, finding her voice again. She raised 7 children on a cook's salary in Manila. She could make magic with 6 ingredients. I just added technique to her wisdom. Chef Beaumont was quiet for a long moment. Then he did something nobody expected. He asked for a second serving. As he ate, he explained to the room what made Maria's dish extraordinary. She hadn't abandoned tradition for the sake of innovation. She'd honored it while pushing it forward. She'd understood something that many trained chefs miss, that the best food in the world isn't about showing off techniques. It's about creating an emotional experience. It's about love translated through flavor. "I owe you an apology," he said finally. "I judged you before tasting your food. That makes me a poor chef and a worse teacher." He turned to the other judges. "This is our winner. It's not even close. But the real story? It's what happened after the cameras stopped rolling. 3 years later, Maria Santos is the executive chef at her own restaurant in Brooklyn. It's called Lola's Kitchen, named after her grandmother. The restaurant has been featured in Bon Appetit. The New York Times gave it 3 stars, and there's a 6-week waiting list for reservations. But here's the beautiful part. Maria uses her platform differently. She's created a mentorship program specifically for immigrant cooks and women of color trying to break into professional kitchens. She remembers what it felt like to be underestimated. And she's determined that the next generation won't face the same barriers. As for Chef Beaumont, he became one of her most vocal supporters. He's publicly stated that Maria's adobo was a humbling masterpiece that reminded him why he fell in love with cooking in the first place. That moment of being proven wrong didn't destroy him. It transformed him. He's now known for actively seeking out and promoting underrepresented culinary voices that Maria's grandmother never got to see her restaurant. She passed away 2 years before that competition. But Maria keeps that oil-stained recipe card framed in her kitchen. And every night before service, she touches it once. A small ritual connecting her to the woman who taught her that the most powerful ingredient in any kitchen isn't expensive equipment or formal training, that it's love. It's heritage. It's the courage to believe your story deserves to be tasted. Maria's story proves that your background doesn't determine your potential. Your passion does. The next time someone underestimates you, remember the young cook who turned ridicule into respect with a single perfect plate. If this story inspired you, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about people who refuse to let the world define their limits. Drop a comment telling us about a time someone underestimated you and how you proved them wrong. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today, because sometimes the most delicious victories are the ones nobody saw coming.